Welcome back to MVM, the show where we talk about all things board game related. Today we're here with a very unique worker placement game that was kickstarted last year. It's coming out right now into retail. It's from Bellwether Games. It's called Coldwater Crown. It is a fishing game.
It is fishing.
Something that I don't think we have seen before in the board game market.
I've never seen a fishing game before. To be quite honest, I've never looked for a fishing game before.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that I was going to be so taken with this. This one is really cool. I've never been a fisherman. It doesn't appeal to me. Mm-hmm. But what I do like are games that do things differently. And this has got a lot of Euro-y sort of gameplay, but it's not wheat. It's not sheep and pigs and things like that, which I like.
There's a few games out on the marketplace that use this worker placement aspect where you're placing something onto the board and then you're removing one, and you're taking both the actions that you place and the action that you remove. What's cool about this is the way that they've integrated that with the bait in the game and the zones and how you're managing those aspects with your tackle box. It's really, really unique.
That I've never seen. I mean, I can't... It almost seems so specific to this game. I don't know how anyone else could implement that, what they've got going on with the tackle box and how it correlates to the fish that you catch.
So let me talk about the components so you guys can better understand as we talk about the gameplay. You have the board. On the board, you have three different locations. You have the lakes, the shores, the rivers. Each of these locations has their own unique style of fish. I believe there's 4 for each different of the locations. Each of these locations is color coordinated, so they act in 2 colors. As you notice on the lakes here, you have red and blue, and all of these colors also are represented by the different color bait that you see. There's 6 different color baits. And you're going to be using these pieces of bait in order to catch fish in those particular locations. Also, you have master angler fish over onto the left-hand side of the board. These are worth victory points to you and another way to collect points at the end of the game. You also see a random amount of victory point tokens.
Yeah, lots of trophies out on the board here. These range from, I mean, a lot of it's set collection. So there's some Master Angler cards tokens here where you'll get, if you get 3 of the same, you'll get one. If you get 4 different ones. This one here is for all the small variety fish from each location. So you get a roach, a flounder, and a perch, and you'll get this. The interesting thing here is these are in descending order. So the first person to go here gets 5 points.
Aspect to it.
And if you wait longer, it goes down and down. Then there's over here the first person to catch 8 different species. And there's a lot of different fish. Like Jeremy said, there's 4 different species in each of these locations.
Yep.
Now, the master anglers don't count here. But if you're doing your main fishing out here, you can get these. These also descend. And then finally, the last trophy is 2 points for the first person to get 12 fish, no matter if they're the same or not, and that's going to also be the game trigger end.
There's also a way to catch random fish, and here there's a range of numbers between 2 and I believe 6 or 7. These are for catching a specific weight fish, and those are completely random.
So when you catch a fish, you can check. What's really cool is all the cards have a weight range on the front of them, and then the actual weight on the back. So you can check if it's within the range, you prove it to the other players, and you get that trophy.
3 more set of components. You have the tackle pieces. There's 15 different tackle. 3 of one kind, 6 of another. Those allow you to kind of break the rules. You'll be able to acquire those through the course of the game by using bait from a very particular location in your tackle box. There is a tackle box, which is basically a player board for each of the players. These player boards are broken into 4 different zones, which represent the 4 different zones that you can fish from. And the last piece are the Master Angler tokens, which are basically your worker placement tokens. They're dual-sided with a 1 and a 2 on the backside. The 2 is a little bit more powerful than the 1 when they're placing. At the start of the game, there's going to be 3 locations that are blocked off with 1s, meaning that at any time in the game, there's always 4 spots that a player can go to.
Exactly.
And the turn's going to work like this. On a player's turn, they're allowed to place their disc anywhere onto the 4 different available actions. They're going to take that action, and then they're going to remove another disc, not the one they placed, take the action of that spot, and then they're going to turn that over to the opposite side, whatever that side may be.
Yeah, it's one of the cool aspects, because when you're turning it over, there's a constant flow of, like, you're going to have some 1s, you're going to have some 2s, so you're generally not going to have a lot of just low-powered actions, and it's also up to you, depending on what you want to take. You might really need to go to the red spot and use a 1 instead of a 2.
Yeah.
So things can change throughout the game that way.
Let me tell you what these spots do, and I'll talk very briefly because there's basically only two different kinds of spots in the game. If you go to one of the locations on the board, and each of the different locations have two spots, you're placing a token on that area. When you place it on that area, it's color coordinated to what you're trying to do. So
Right.
I'm taking a blue action here, I would be taking a red action here, and so forth through the game. When you place a 1 token, that allows you to remove one piece of bait of that particular color from every zone on your board. So if I have blue tokens on my board, I can remove 1. These all go to a common discard pile that's just off to the side. However, if I place a 2, it allows you to take all of the blue everywhere off of your
Right.
player board and put them into a common discard pile. Now, there's a way to not throw them into the common discard pile, and that's by acquiring these anglerfish. How do you acquire the anglerfish? That's the other location on the board. When you go to the port, it allows you to do one of two actions. One action if you play a 1, 2 actions if you play a 2. You can do the same action twice, or you can do one of the 2 actions. The first action allows you to simply grab bait from the bag and place them onto one of your 4 zones, depending upon how many they can hold. The other action allows you to take any of the anglerfish and put them onto your side of the board.
Yeah, and this game is all about timing. So there's going to be turns where you want a master angler that you're looking at over here, so that when you remove your bait, like Jeremy said, instead of placing in the discard pile, you can put it on your card to fulfill that. So there's an ebb and a flow, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Throughout this
Absolutely.
entire game, based on what other players are doing and even what you're doing on your turn, because there's going to be times where you need your bait first and then the card, or you need the card first then the bait. But depending on where the tokens are, it could completely change your plans.
So what are you guys trying to do with the bait? Once you cast your last piece of bait into the location that you're using, you're going to catch a fish from that particular zone of the area that you had gone to. So for instance, if I had gone to this blue area and I cast my last piece of blue from this zone, I would catch the blue fish that correlates to that area.
Right.
And you simply take that fish and you collect it onto your side. Now, it's great because on the front side of these fish, they tell you a weight range. For instance, the perch has a 2 to 6. On the back side, secretly, I know the actual weight, and I know a tag. The tag is involved in in-game scoring, which we'll talk about in a moment. What you're trying to do is catch the right fish at the right time.
And a good variety.
Yeah, a good variety of fish.
The variety is important because one of the scoring elements that we didn't talk about is at the end of the game, you're going to be taking all of your cards, taking the weight of all the different fish from that location, adding it up, and comparing it with everyone else.
That's right. So players are going to keep doing this until one player collects 12 total fish,
Right.
which will signify the end of the game. Every player has one more turn to do something. And then, as David alluded to, you are going to go through each of the locations of the fish that you had collected. If you collected multiple of the same type of species from a particular location, you can only pick one of those, submit to the Coldwater Crown Challenge.
Yeah, so generally you're going to want to pick your heaviest weight fish. Now, there is going to be a time where you might not want to do that. This is where the tags come into play. You're going to get, for any fish that you submit to this last final weight challenge that has the correct tag, and you're going to pick this randomly at the beginning of the game, you're going to get a bonus point. So if I'm going here at the lake, and I know Jeremy has a wide variety of fish and I only have 2, I'm likely to lose the weight challenge.
That's right.
So instead of putting my heaviest weight, say I have 2 fish and there's a heavy one and then there's a lighter one that has the yellow tag, I would choose the yellow tag one to get that bonus point.
Yep. Players will also get victory points for all of their tokens that they've collected through the course of the game. And you're simply going to add up those and each of the master anglers that you've collected. Each one of these are worth a victory point at the end.
Yeah, it's very simple once you get going. This game has some things, like we said, it's not complicated, but there's some things that I don't think either of us have seen in other games.
Yeah.
So the first play, right in the very beginning, early moments of that game, it's going to take a little bit of time. But once you get into it, it's very simple and very quick.
It's a game that's all about anticipating the best possible thing to do, right? You have to plan ahead. You have to know what you're trying to catch at particular locations, which can make the game a little more difficult with the more players that you introduce, especially at a 4-player game, because you are trying to plan to catch a very particular fish with a very particular color because you have that color on your player board. And when it gets back around to you, that perch that you may have been trying to catch may now be a sea trout in that location.
Things can change drastically, and there's not a lot of opportunity to manipulate the bait on your tackle box to change your plans.
But there are ways to mitigate it through the tackle that you would originally place on there through the port. You can always go to option 6 or option 5, which are unique spots on your player board. Option 6, which requires more tackle and is a little bit harder to manipulate through the course of the game, but it also allows you to pick the top card from any of these locations when you catch a fish. On the flip side, the bonus allows you to collect these tackle, and as we said previously, there's some great ways to break the rules, and if I'm catching a fish here, it'll allow you with the right piece of tackle to catch it from a different zone in the same location.
Yeah, the cool thing about this game is that it has some opportunities for some really sweet turns.
Yeah.
Like there are some turns where you catch 2 fish, and then you use bait that completes one of your master angler fish, so you really feel a lot of satisfaction. In fact, there's very few turns where you're not feeling like you're doing something to achieve some of your goals. Now, with that said, with the higher player count, there are going to be more times where the token that you have to place might
not benefit you at all.
Not at all. Yeah. There may be times where you have to place on red, even though you have no red bait, so you're not going to manipulate anything on your tackle box. So at that point, it turns into a, how can I clog things up for another player a little bit?
And that's what I would suggest to new players. If you're playing this game, I would say spread yourself out. Instead of going for one particular location where you're trying to finish off this location, go to the port, use the port, get a variety of tackle in all your spots so that it's through the course of the game, you may have spots at different areas that you can clear at the same time or at different times, so that red option is now available to you. That blue option is available on this zone and so forth.
It's really interesting because when you have a variety of colors, you're able to make some progress each turn. However, if you happen to draw a lot of the same color, it can set up some enormous turns.
For a player.
We've played this a few times, so I'd like to play it more to see how this plays out. But there's a natural balance there, because if you're not making progress because you have too much of one color, hopefully on a future turn you're able to catch up with a massive turn that lets you catch a couple fish and maybe complete one of your master angler cards.
Yeah, I have to say, as early it is in 2017, this is easily one of my top 3 games that I think that we have played this year.
I would agree completely.
It's got a lot of unique aspects to it. The worker placement portion of it is really, really intriguing for the fact that it's so simple to do, but there's a lot of strategy and tactics on when you do the timing of everything that you do in this game.
Yeah, and the game flows really well. Like I said earlier, there's no AP really because you have very limited options on your turn, and in many of those options, you can rule out very quickly based on what bait you have. So it moves along very well. And I'll say this one last time. If you're thinking of this and like, fishing? Really? Put that out of your head completely and try this game, because it is a really, really brilliant game, and that theme really comes through in a very cool and clever way.
It's a really nice-looking game, too.
It's a gorgeous game. They've put a lot of nice touches. Jeremy and I both really appreciate when a company puts really good touches into their games. The tackle boxes correlate to these zones that are out on the board, and they've actually made these so that you can rotate them so that depending on where you're sitting at the table, it makes visual sense, and they have wording on here that operates in all directions for you. So something like that. They also have player aids on opposite corners of the board that tell you what all of the tackle tokens do. Little things like that really help. The less you have to reference the rules, the better, and this game does that really well.
Yeah, so guys, go check this one out. It's actually in retail right now. I think it just came out.
Just coming out.
Coldwater Crown, 1 to 4 players, about 90 minutes to get through. If you guys have any questions, please make comments below. We'll answer them. Subscribe to us, of course. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and everything else that we do here at Man vs. Meeple, and we will catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.